I paused and said, "My book actually represents the exact opposite message of these game shows and lotteries. There is indeed a frenzy today about getting rich quick. While my book is about getting rich, it is not about getting rich quick." The commentator nodded and gave me a skeptical grin. "So, if you are not part of this get-rich-quick mania, then what are you proposing? Get rich slowly?" I could feel her sarcasm, and it challenged me. In front of millions of viewers, I had to try to keep my cool. So I forced a chuckle in response to her barbed comment and said, "No, my book is not about getting rich quickly or getting rich slowly." I then smiled and waited for her to ask me the next question. The silence was deafening, but I held my ground as calmly as possible, waiting for her to make the next move. She smiled and asked, "So what is your book about?" I grinned and replied, "It's about the price of getting rich." "The price?" she replied. "What do you mean by the price?" As she asked the question, the producer signaled to her that we were out of time. She then urged me to hurry with my answer, and I ended the interview by saying, "Most everyone wants to get rich, but the problem is that only a few people are willing to pay the price." The TV interview was over. The host thanked me, and they cut to the final commercial. I was never able to address what I think the price of becoming rich actually is. This book answers that question. Who pays the price? One government study tracked people from the ages of 20 to 65. By the time they turned 65 years old, the study found that 1% were wealthy, 4% were well off, 5% were still working because they had to, 54% were living on support from family or the government, 36% were dead. In addition, more than 35% of that wealthy 1% inherited their wealth, as did a large percentage of the 4% who were well off. Yet the question remains, what did the top 5% of the rich do that the others did not? What price did the 5% pay that the others did not? Does a big house mean you're rich? When I was young, my rich dad drove me past a classmate's house located in a very wealthy neighborhood. I asked Rich Dad if my classmate's dad was rich. Rich Dad chuckled and responded, "A high-income job, a big house, nice cars, and lavish vacations do not mean you're rich. In fact, it could mean exactly the opposite. A lavish lifestyle does not mean you're smart or well-educated. It could mean exactly the opposite." Most of us are wise enough to understand what Rich Dad meant by that statement. Yet I think one of the reasons so many people faithfully play the lottery is because they too would like to have a nice big house, expensive cars, and all the other toys that money can buy. While it is possible to gain millions by winning the lottery, in reality, the chances of doing so are extremely slim. Just as a big house does not necessarily mean you're rich, sitting around watching a game show or betting on your lucky numbers is not the price that most of the top 1% paid to become rich. What is the price to become rich? There are many different ways to become rich. Winning the lottery or winning on a game show are just two examples. You can also become rich by being cheap, becoming a crook, or even marrying a wealthy person. Many people actively look for rich people to marry. Be forewarned. With any method of attaining great wealth, there is a price, and the price is not always measured in money. The price for watching game shows and betting on the lottery is that the vast majority will never become rich, and that is a very steep price to pay. There are better ways to become rich, with much better odds, but most people are not willing to pay the price. In fact, there are some ways of becoming rich in which the odds are in the person's favor, almost guaranteeing that a person will become rich. But again, the problem is